It's Anila, you can start now.
Right. Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. This is Anila Rampuria from Green Veranda. Welcoming all to Green Veranda. I'm Anila Rampuria from Delhi, India, a traveler by heart, a sustainability crusader, a mentor to entrepreneurs and initiatives, and also a music lover. और आज हम लोग गैदर हुए हैं कुछ गपशप करने के लिए, कुछ बातें करने के लिए, बिकॉज वी ऑल केयर फॉर मदर अर्थ. We are travelers by heart and we want to see the magnificence of this universe, magnificence of the environment, and we want to appreciate it and preserve it. So that is the whole purpose of getting today. And Green Veranda के बारे में कुछ बताना चाहूंगी. Green Veranda is an initiative that we have taken to inspire sustainability, wellness, and green to many. And when I say inspiration, I believe that inspiration always leads to action. तो यदि दिल में बात होगी तो action तो हो ही जाएगा. ये हमारा thought होता है. और since I said I'm a traveler by heart, so and God has been very kind. He has been making me visit all the beautiful and amazing places in recent past. And so when I go to these places और मैं देखती हूँ बहुत कभी sunrise, sunset, birds chirping, landscapes, and then suddenly I see plastic bottles, I see construction, I see banners, So when I feel elated at one moment, my heart beeps, and I start feeling very sad. या ये तो कहीं ना कहीं कुछ गलत हो रहा है. भगवान ने इतनी सुंदर प्रकृति इसलिए बनाई कि हम इसे देखें, एक्सप्लोर करें, लेकिन हम लोग इसको प्रिजर्व नहीं कर पा रहे हैं, हम लोग इसको एंजॉय नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. So that is the whole purpose of creating. And recently I went to Lansdowne to Uttarakhand, and this was a mixed feeling, and I really wanted to do something about it. And the first thing that I thought was to curate a show, to curate a program, to invite some people who can take this message ahead. And I'm very happy that we have Dr. Pranab Shilpatar with us. A very, very big welcome to Dr. Pranab to this show. And while मैं तो सिर्फ feel करती हूँ, Dr. Pranab is one person who is feeling and who is taking actions also. And we have architect Anurag also, who is also taking a lot of action. So we will talk to both of them and we'll try to understand कि ये लोग traveling, क्यों travel passionate people हैं, और क्या what they are doing about responsible and sustainable tourism. So I welcome you, Dr. Pranab, and I would request you to आप अपने बारे में थोड़ा सा हमको कुछ बताएं and take this ahead and talk about how traveling is your passion and how sustainability is your passion. Over to you, sir. Unmute, sir.
Thank you and good afternoon. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you, Anilaji and Anuragji in Green Veranda this afternoon. I feel really honored, and this is in fact, I am, like you said, I'm also a traveler by heart. I'm also a seeker at the same time. So that has helped me and inspired me, and in fact prompted me, forced me to travel wherever I can and whenever I can. In fact, I am an environmental professional by training. And I work in the space of environment sustainability, largely around water resources, biodiversity, livelihood, climate action extensively. So because of my work, thankfully, I have had the opportunity of travel to far-flung places across the country and to some of the beautiful places people do not necessarily go but because of my work, I had that privilege of visiting some of these places. So I'm based out of Delhi, and I work with an Indian American small initiative called Global Foundation for Advancement of Environment and Human Wellness. We work on three important verticals of environment: climate security, water security, and food and nutrition security. But travel happens to be, it's part of my life. A lot of people do not necessarily know. Of course, they know that I by training, by profession, I'm an environmentalist. But a lot of people do not know that I have a degree in management, and that too related to tourism. So that is one, of course, connection that I have academically. But tourism happened to me because I've started traveling. I've started enjoying traveling with my parents. First trip, formal trip to a national park must have happened when I was maybe 7 or 8, some 35 years ago. And from there on, it had continued. I continue to travel, and then eventually drawn more closer to environmental issues, sustainability issues, and that's where I am today. Uh, and and so traveling is something, it happens to me naturally. I do not necessarily, like I said, of course I have this advantage of being in the environment profession, but it just happens. I do not necessarily need to take an extra enormous amount of effort and planning to travel. I just impromptu, it happens, because I see that connection. And like I said, I'm also seeker, because I know for sure that travel is I perhaps, I sometimes I feel this is a bigger teacher than anybody else. You learn more from by just by traveling than what you learn in the school and colleges. And as a seeker, I travel because I know there's enormous amount of knowledge that is lying across these places that we travel. And be it about environment, be it about culture, be it about various practices, indigenous practices. So it's a place of learning. So that's how I want to travel. I keep traveling whenever I can. Yes, thank you.
That's so wonderful, so wonderful. And I'm sure आपको भी वो feelings जो आई होंगी, when you go to these beautiful places and you feel that the local habitat is being disturbed, hampered, आपको भी काफी तकलीफ होती होगी. So how do you think this tourism is hampering environment?
That is one of the biggest challenges that we face today. Tourism as such is not disturbing the environment. The elements of tourism, like human beings, so we travel. So along with us, we also carry a lot of baggage. So baggage could be in our minds. It also could be literal sense of baggage. And that we, instead of bringing it back, we leave them behind. So that is more problem. And if you look at today, the footprint, the carbon footprint, or water footprint of traveling in this tourism and travel industry is pretty large. And because when we say travel and tourism, it includes air travel as well. So obviously the carbon footprint is fairly large. But what I see is the impact can actually be addressed at the local level. There has to be a decentralized approach, because like I said, traveling as such is not harming the environment. It's the activities involved with traveling and tourism, and the people around us, because we tend to take a very insensitive and irresponsible behavior approach at times, and that is causing more damage. And it pains me, like you all, it pains me too, because India, if we take India as an example, India is a very unique country, very diverse, both in terms of culture and natural heritage. But way things are, it's not encouraging. So, of course, one is the human-made problems that is happening. The other problem is, of course, a natural problem like changing climate. Changing climate is getting induced by the activities. There is unsustainable activities that we tend to put together because of so-called developmental aspirations. So environment is causing damage. It is actually, if you look at the dynamics, it is tourism activities at times causing damage and bringing problems to various landscapes across the world. At the same time, when we are damaging the environment, of course, we are actually ruining the potential of tourism, because tourism is nature is the basis of tourism activities. It offers everything that is needed. People are seeking, solace. People are looking for beautiful landscape. People are looking for greener and cleaner environment, and they travel to far-flung areas, remote areas. But then we end up causing damage to the local environment, and thereby compromising the tourism potential. And tomorrow, if it continues to happen in one particular place, tomorrow there would be a day or time that that place will no longer be able to attract people anymore, because because it's already ruined. For example, you mentioned about plastics. The waste management has been a major problem, and I would say waste mismanagement is a major problem. Had there been a management in place, we would not have to face the kind of problem that we are facing. So again, coming back to the problem that I stated, that's a larger footprint, carbon footprint, water footprint. It's increasing. Because of our own activities, and I see it doesn't require a lot to manage and address this problem. It lies within us. If I change, I'll be able to change my place around me and influence 10 other people to become more sustainable and responsible. Yeah, thank you.
Great. So well said. So well said. The change has to be within us. That's so good. And I would like to ask Anurag. Anurag, he's an architect. He's practicing sustainable architecture, and he's a very acclaimed name in this sector. So Anurag, I believe architecture, when I see in hill stations, there's a beautiful luxury hotel with swimming pool and all that, I really feel ki iski kya zarurat hai, why can't they go minimalistic? Recently, I went to a site, I went to a resort. It was a beautiful resort. Usme Swiss camps the. It was on the river side. There were Swiss camps. So very basic, very basic. It was like we had to cross a river. उन्होंने bridge भी नहीं बनाया था उस river cross करने के लिए, पत्थरों से. So all these things, they had made it very natural, and they had not disturbed the environment much and all that. So what is your thought on this?
Thank you, Anila. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on this platform on Green Veranda. Talking about tourism and sustainable tourism, architecture plays a very vital role in making tourism sustainable. Architecture can actually play a very critical and a vital role in making tourism sustainable. But I think what you're talking about of the kind of natural development of these kind of properties. So I think this is a shift that has come post-COVID. Now, people have started thinking about it by going minimalistic. And we've been involved into making a lot of resorts in very remote locations and very sensitive environmental locations. And we've been doing this for more than 10 years, and we've been propagating it and actually doing the bit that we are supposed to do in creating such kind of resorts by doing very minimalistic development, but making it very comfort and cozy for the traveler to have a great experience, right? This requires a lot of input in terms of how you understand nature and how you understand the natural escapes, right? There is a very good example that we recently did in Udaipur. Like, this was a site which was a barren site, and it was a hilltop, and it was barren. There were no trees on that, right? In Udaipur, tourism was always understood to be around the lakes only, right? And there was a kind of a notion that tourism can happen in Udaipur around the lakes only, and all the development that happened in Udaipur actually happened around the lake. But this is a very unique example where this property, Ananta, which is off the lake, like it is more than 10-15 kilometers off the lake, very isolated, on a very barren kind of in Rajasthan, you can understand the kind of flora and fauna growth, right? But what we as an architect took to it is that it is done by an architect called Mr. Mukul Goyal. He's one of my seniors, and I've been associated with him in doing some extensions in this. But this is a very beautiful property, And the kind of approach that they took to develop this was that they started doing a lot of landscape, and they grew too many trees, too many flowers and other things on the site, and started making that site look very natural. So what happened was, the notion of the people who wanted to go and see Udaipur, now there is so much of flora and fauna around the 10-acre property that people want to stay inside the property rather than going outside the property and enjoy the property. So by bringing in a lot of landscape, by bringing in a lot of trees, by bringing in a lot of flora, fauna, waterfalls and other things, the property automatically started connecting with the people, and people started, and today it is one of the India's biggest wedding destinations in the country. So that is part one, how a sustainable development of a property can be done by making more landscape and less of built up, right? So the more landscape, the more it will get environment friendly, the more it will connect to the environment, and people will enjoy the natural escapes rather than moving out and creating other nuisances in and around the places, right? So I think this condensed tourism can play a very vital role in making tourism sustainable. Thank you, Anila.
Great. So there's a different perspective that Anurag got into this conversation. How because I believe these properties, resorts, and they play a very important role in promoting tourism. So that's one way of looking at it, and a very important way of looking at it. So Dr. Pranav, now I would like to ask you. We spoke on how tourism is hampering environment. So what is now responsible and sustainable tourism? Like if I put it on as number one, number two, number three, so that because a lot of people, travelers, they contribute to sustainable, they will contribute, the tourism industry will contribute to sustainable tourism, and the policy makers will contribute. So how all these can club together and make the whole bucket as sustainable and friendly?
Right. Thank you. In fact, this is a very interesting scenario altogether. In fact, for a long time, we have been emphasizing on two things. One is bringing holistic approach into all our environmental and tourism-related planning as well as implementation. The other thing is decentralized solutions. So, like Anurag has said, this Udaipur resort. So that is also becoming sustainable because it is trying to create an ecosystem around it. Ecosystem to nurture, support the local environment, and also manage their own, for example, waste. So this is a completely decentralized approach. So you are not creating problem for others, and that is lacking. That is a fundamental problem that I see everywhere we go today. It is not just a problem of tourism department or tourism industry, but also in general. Like for example, you look at Gazipur, the waste dump site. It is a dump of it's a mountain of waste created by whom? People like you and me and all of us. So instead of managing that, the waste which is actually possible to be managed by within the household, we are sending it out day in and day out, and as a result we see a mountain, and it is causing more problem than a sustainable solution to our waste. So similarly, if we start looking at that, the fundamental understanding about decentralized approach to water resource management, decentralized approach to waste management, decentralized approach to your agriculture needs, decentralized approach to your energy needs. Like for example, you go solar, you increase your dependency on renewables. So thereby it becomes, because the end of the day, if you see most of our environmental problems, and that is further linking to issues of unsustainable tourism, irresponsible tourism. It is again to do with irresponsible consumption and irresponsible production. In fact, since we are talking about sustainability, so I should very well also mention about the sustainable goals. There's a sustainable goal called goal number 12. It is emphasizing on sustainable consumption and production. In fact, most of our problems that we see today in our day-to-day life, it's actually because you are producing more and consuming more, and you don't know how to handle your waste. So we will have to start from there. We'll have to begin to address those fundamental problems. And now you also mentioned about the policy. The policy discourse, thankfully, it's very conducive these days. And it is also started to realize the local problems. So we are no longer emphasizing everything top down and everything. Earlier, it is to be an approach which is called one size fits all. So now no longer it's happening. It is more tailor-made. It is more customized so that you can address your problem right then and there, the way it is needed. And that could be different than what in my problem. Like, for example, your problem, you're handling your way, and I'm handling my own way without creating further baggage for our environment to suffer. So that is one. The other thing that I feel that I remember, I recall a conversation that I had with, in fact, he's considered one of the pioneers of ecotourism in Indian subcontinent. His name is Papa John Wakefield. I have had the pleasure of his no more. He was a British gentleman who worked and lived in India and died in India. So John Wakefield, he was associated with this very famous ecotourism resort in Nepal. It's called Tiger Tops. Then he came back to start India's first ecotourism resort in the state of Karnataka, and which is very well known trend now, without naming it. And I have had the pleasure of interacting with him. He said, you'll have to understand the local needs. You'll have to be able to create that synergy with local needs, local people, local environment, and local flora and fauna. And then automatically your problem, the problem is you will never be able to, in fact, see any problem around if you can create that ecosystem. Because every resort, every tourism operation has to build like as it is an ecosystem, and it has to align with the local environment. It should not be something as an alien, right? So the moment we are able to bridge that gap, I think more than half of our problem is solved. And then coming to implementation part, implementation becomes much easier when the idea of tourism is founded on a simplistic philosophy, which is founded on local environment, local environmental needs, local people needs. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I like that word aligned, because being aligned to local is very, very important, and it makes so much of sense. And I would also like to add here that as a traveler also, we have a lot of responsibilities, and we would like to, when we go towards the end, we would like to sum it up. And I'm very happy to share that we are doing this talk on the pretext of United Nations Day, which is falling tomorrow on 24th October. So we would also, Dr. Pranab, if you can just remind us of the various United Nations goals also, and then I'll come to Architect Anurag for sharing how a little more on his experiences. Over to you, Doctor.
Yes, Anila.
Thank you. In fact, this question is to me, right?
Sorry.
This question was to me, right? It was directed
yes,
to me.
Yes.
Okay, right.
United Nations goals, because yes. I just tomorrow we have UN Day, and why don't we discuss the goals also of UN Day?
Right. So quickly, I'll touch upon two things. One, of course, this day is very significant. It is the anniversary of United Nations. In fact, on this very day, 23rd of October in 1945, officially United Nations was born. So, and there has been a lot of emphasis by and the larger responsibility of bringing the countries together, regions together to build a peaceful and sustainable world. And they have been able to continuously pursue this goal over these years. In fact, this year, the theme of the UN Day, 23rd October, is recovering better for an equitable and sustainable world, and which is so apt. In fact, it's exactly matching to our theme of this session today. Sustainable tourism, sustainable and responsible tourism, and so we have a larger responsibility. And since you mentioned about the travelers, yes, travelers are equally responsible, and they have a larger power today in today's world and today's context in this digital world. Because earlier people used to, the travel was a personal and private affair earlier. You go, travel, enjoy, you come back. You probably click a few photographs, print them and put them in albums. You look at them, enjoy, and I become a little nostalgic. But now things have changed. It's a huge transformation thanks to digitalization and social media. So you travel, you put it on Facebook, everybody gets to see, where have you been? And then people started talking about, if it's a new destination, new experience, people started to say and talk about the experience that you may have may have gone through. At the same time, by putting a right message, the traveler, and also can influence 1,000 other people through social media. So that's where the sustainability, the importance of sustainability, importance of responsible behavior is so very important. Because you go travel, you behave exactly the way it is needed, it is appreciated, and you come back and you put that message across in social media. And this sustainable development goals that we are referring to, there are 17 of them. It's in 2015, there were 197 member countries of the United Nations. They got together to identify our current and futuristic needs, to be able to be more proactive in addressing those areas of challenge which can be collectively addressed by the member countries. In fact, we have had a different set of goals earlier. It used to be known as Millennium Development Goal. And once the Millennium Development Goal was over by 2015, this new set of goals came in, just more specific and more directed towards what can be done by the countries and stakeholders, starting from people like you and me, NGOs, non-government sector, academic institutions, and of course, government agencies. So these goals talk about saving our planet, providing and producing enough food, addressing issues of poverty and hunger, creating a better work life, emphasizing on sustainable production, consumption, saving our aquatic ecosystem, saving our terrestrial ecosystem, doing more to address climate change challenges and things like. So that's why the way UN Day and the Sustainable Development Goals is so important, and it's very this theme of this year is aligned with the goals, the Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm glad that you've done this. You've chosen this day to address and honor and celebrate this important day, and which is a reminder to all of us that that these days, of course, they do come and go, but we should not be symbolic. We should not be doing things that we are talking today only on those particular days. We should be, it is a reminder that it should be a daily affair. It should be a part of our lifestyle, So yeah, so thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, so wonderful. It's very important that we keep reminding. We know it all, but it is very important that we keep reminding it all the time. So okay, so Anurag, my next question is to you. Anurag, as we know that construction, or the resort or the properties, they play a very important role in tourism. So what is your message to the tourism industry, to the construction people, what they should be doing, to ensure that tourism and environment, they can go hand in hand and they can make things more beautiful.
Yes, Anila. As I earlier told you, architecture plays a very vital role in making tourism sustainable, because this sustainability approach for these properties is key to making tourism a sustainable model, right? Wherein the process of construction also aligns with the sustainability goals and the operations. Matlab, it is not only the operations that need to align with the sustainability goal, but I think the development also needs to align with the sustainability goals in making the whole process in such a manner that there is a reduction of carbon footprint by use of material, by the process by which it is done. The use of water, the use of reduction of carbon footprint, by the use of such kind of material which align with this with this theory of glo- glo- global warming and carbon emission goals, right? So I think the whole development needs to be in such a manner that it is more energy efficient, wherein the energy that is consumed by these by these infrastructures shall be reduced by the intent of design, by the intent of the material, by the intent of the environment that is created, so that there is a less run of air conditioning, there is a less run of energy that is being consumed because of lighting, because of ventilation, because of HVAC and other factors. Secondly, all the waste management or the water management inside the property should align with the goal that there should be no no waste material that goes out of the property, and it is recycled and reconsumed and reused within the whole infrastructure itself, and a zero waste management systems are incorporated in such kind of properties, right? Most of the 5-star rated properties are already trying to achieve these goals of zero emission or zero energy efficiency or zero waste management, right? But this needs to get percolated down the line to the smaller properties, where they also align with this theory of sustainability, and they also start adopting such kind of measures and systems which can reduce these wastage that is coming out of it, or the wastage not only in terms of wastage but also sewage treatment and waste treatment should become the key principle of all the tourism establishments across the world. I think that will make tourism a very healthy and a sustainable model. Yes, Anila.
Beautiful, lovely, lovely, lovely. And I would also like to add here, about Anurag. He is doing a lot of prefab structures, because he's so concerned about all these things, all these areas, that he has developed a beautiful wooden structure format. So, Anurag, if you can just elaborate a little on that, because we have this feeling that wood, using wood is not sustainable, or it is against the against plantation or something like that. So, over to you on that.
Yes, Anila, I think across the world, this global warming and construction activity has now been seen as one of the largest carbon polluters. Nah, it was never understood that construction is actually a pollution activity, polluting activity. But now it is being understood that almost 50% of our carbon footprint is actually coming from construction, and that is majorly by the use either of steel and concrete. They are the major polluters and carbon emitters in construction process. So what in around 2000, when this climate change and all these things started gaining momentum, so people realized that construction needs to be seen with this angle, and we need to search out a material which is more eco-friendly, which is more sustainable, which can achieve the similar goals like concrete and steel. So we found that wood was a very good material, because wood, it can be regrown, right? Nothing else can be regrown which is used in construction, but wood as a material can be regrown in your, matlab, the amount of wood that you are consuming, you will be able to regrow that wood. So that kind of a sustainability model was understood, and wood emerged as one of the most eco-friendly construction material across the world. And now across the world, in Canada, in Europe, in America, Australia, New Zealand, all across the world, in developed nations, they have started making buildings with wood, and not in a smaller scale, but in very large and multi-storied formats also. Wood is being now understood as a very eco-friendly material. The best part about the wood is that when the tree grows, it actually absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and locks it into the structure of the wood. So when wood is cut, that carbon dioxide gets stored in that wood, and that wood becomes the part of the building, and it creates space for more trees to grow. So more carbon dioxide gets stored, and this carbon bank, which is stored in the wood, uh, is replaced into urban areas wherein the concrete building was coming and emitting carbon dioxide. Now the building is being built by absorbing carbon dioxide. So this is a very effective phenomena of actually catering to carbon emission and growing trees. Because when there'll be a commercial model which will revolve around wood, there'll be more amount of people who uh, will be initiated to grow trees and use trees. So the more trees are grown, the more wood is grown, the more carbon dioxide is sequestered, and the more number of economic model will emerge out of this policy. Yes.
I think this is so wonderful, very well explained. And so, as I am following a few practices as a responsible traveler. I would just like to share some of them, and maybe Dr. Pranav and Anurag can add to it, so that people who will view this program, at least, they get inspired. And I generally like to go to places, which are local, so that I promote local people. I do not go to, branded hotels and resorts. And the second thing that I do is I like to go book Swiss tents, or I like to book wooden structures. So that's one way of doing. The third thing, I carry my own towel. The fourth thing I do is I carry my own toiletries, because I dislike, the idea of using those small bottles and then just throwing and adding the trash to the environment. Fourth thing that I do is I ask for more fruits, more raws, more vegetables. I don't ask for too many things on meals, ki mujhe ye bhi khana hai, ye bhi khana hai. I like to go minimalistic. I like to travel in groups, because that makes it more economic. I don't like to go to points, they have sunset points or sunrise points where everybody is going. I would rather like to walk the distance, explore local. So that's one way. And then, night, I would not like to switch on the lights unnecessarily, so that the local animals, the insects, they do not get disturbed. So these are some ways that I have adopted to make myself a more responsible traveler. So, Dr. Pranab, if you can add to it, if you're following some more practices on an individual basis, or Anurag, please add to it.
Thanks again. It's very pertinent point, and I'm really glad. In fact, I'm feeling elated that the kind of practices that you have try to inculcate in your own travel schedule, so which is good, and something we all should learn. In fact, I continue to hello.
Yes, we
I
can hear.
can, okay. I can continue to, oh, sorry. I, like you, I continue to promote the local approach when it comes to tourism, local products, local services, local amenities, because one of the biggest carbon footprint that is getting accumulated, the emissions that is getting accumulated, it's because of the supply chain involved in the tourism industry. The be it services, be it products, be it crops, because you travel to one place and then you order something exotic for your meal, and which is coming from maybe hundreds of kilometers away. So it's obviously you're only increasing carbon footprint and nothing else. And similarly, there are certain crops and certain food producers, something we don't often realize, including our very very rice and atta and coffee and tea. There's something called embedded water footprint, embedded water, it's called invisible water, the water that is required to, right from producing a crop all the way to preparing the meal and serving it. It requires a lot of water, something we don't realize and don't see. That's why it is called an invisible water. And water consumption, or the embedded water level of some of these crops are extremely high. So if we start promoting local, like for example, if we happen to travel to the Himachal and Uttarakhand part of India, Indian Himalayan region, so we can very well, enjoy local meals, which is the dal and millets and this and that, So instead of consuming, your cornflakes and things like that. So I'm also very much in favor of local producers. Yeah. Yes.
Sir, what you're talking, there is a very interesting website which has a very interesting data. I'll just share it and you can continue.
Right. The other thing that I want to quickly touch upon, oh, this is interesting. Number of tourist arrivals somewhere on Earth this year. Oh my goodness, this is an obnoxious number. 45 arrivals every second, 1.4 billion tourists. My goodness, that's huge. In fact, I want to, sorry, you're saying something. Your voice is breaking, Anuragji.
Tons of waste dumped.
Yes.
This is the ongoing data set.
Right. Yeah, I can see that it's
square kilometer of being degraded tourism. This is all tourism related data set.
Right. So coming to this, this land area being degraded, degradation happens because of two reasons. Of course, either it is for construction, you clearing outsides, cutting trees and things like that. The other one is like your dumping waste, waste disposal. So as far as, so that is another reason why we should be promoting the local initiative, local ventures and, community-based rural tourism, because, their consumption pattern in any case is very small. The dependency on these resources are in any case very small. The carbon footprint, water footprint is small, much smaller than your bigger operations. I am not saying that we do not need big businesses, as long as they're responsible, as long as they are doing the way it should be done, the most sustainable way possible, they're most welcome to operate. But at the same time, we should also promote these local initiatives, the community-based initiatives, because they add to local well-being, local education, local economy, and top of that, local empowerment. It's very important, empowerment of women especially. And in fact, one of our projects, it is more of an environment project and alternative livelihood value addition in the states of Uttarakhand in Bageshwar district. So we are promoting as an alternative livelihood practices. We are trying to engage women in rural tourism, homestays and things like that, so that they can start, because in any case these are small landholding farmers. They do not have a lot of other livelihood revenue sources. So if these can be added, so it will be good for their economy. It will be good for their local economic empowerment. And last point, I'm sorry, I'm taking a little longer. The last point that I want to add is and emphasize is the cumulative potential of these smaller small tourism ventures, the local community-based tourism initiatives. It's much larger than all other bigger initiatives combined, because you may not realize this small entities scattered all over the place across India. If they can be combined together, the value that they are creating for the local economy, the local environment, is huge. And it could be very well compared with the cumulative impact of the bigger resorts. And it could be both. It could be both positive impacts and it could be both negative impacts. That's why responsibility right at the beginning of tourism practices is very important. So responsible behavior, both by the communities, the tourism operators, the business owners, and us, the travelers, and also the influentials. It's very important that we try and promote responsible behavior everywhere, everything that we do, not just for tourism, but all other things that is helping us lead a comfortable life today. Yeah, thank you.
Lovely, very nice, very enlightening thoughts, Dr. Pranav. And so that's been a wonderful conversation. Or I also like that word empowerment, local empowerment. And what I also, in my own ways, what I do is when I go to a place, I try to talk and spend more time with the local people. They have a very big fancy for urban life. They feel that people in Delhi, Mumbai, and other urban cities, they are very well off. So I try to tell them, you are living in paradise. So and I make them feel elated and proud that they are actually, this is the real life that they are living. They are getting pure air, good air, fresh air, good water. So these are few ways that we can do little things. हम लोग करके local लोगों को empower करें, उनसे बातें करें, और लोकल म्यूजिक सुने, वहाँ का लोकल डांस देखें, लोकल उन लोगों के घरों में जाए. Now they have a system, where the local people, they can invite people, and we can see their culture, we can see how they live their life. So this is a few things, and I think we can wrap up this show for the moment, but with a big determination to make travel more responsible and sustainable. And is there any last message, if anyone has to say? Most welcome. Anurag or Dr. Pranav, any message that you have?
I think, Anila, that human race pre-COVID and post-COVID is going to drastically change. And tourism is going to be the key factor, because in COVID, most of the people have realized that there is no fun in being at home, and everybody wants to travel at every opportunity that is being available to him. So travel and tourism is going to see a sea change in the post-COVID times and upcoming times. And I think to be human is to travel, and and travel is the best learning method that anybody can get as a human being. The kind of learning that you get with travel is immense, and the kind of knowledge that you gain after travel makes you a much wiser person. Because I've been traveling extensively since my school days, and I have almost gone the length and breadth of the country, and even internationally I've traveled more than 30-40 countries, right? And I am a kind of an avid traveler, so I don't travel with a lot of luggage, I don't travel with a lot of money. I go and stay with local people. I make friends whenever I travel. I make friends walking down on the road, sitting in the train, traveling on the aeroplane. I always try and make friends wherever possible. I can make friends and connect with them, not just for that moment, but make a connection which becomes a lifelong connection with people, right? So I've got a lot of things like this in terms of travels, which has given me a lot of insight into who I am today. who I am today as a person. So I think travel has played a very vital role in my personality development. Yes, Anila.
Thank you so much. And yes, rightly said, travel makes you so modest and you actually realize what a small place you occupy in this whole universe. So travel to bahut karna chahiye, and we should also encourage a lot of people to travel, but more responsibly. That's our message. And thank you so very much. And a special thanks to Dr. Pranav. And we were supposed to go live at 8:15 p.m. in the evening, but due to certain, commitments at my end, I had to reschedule the whole thing. So thank you so much for cooperating and joining at this hour. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anurag. Thank you, Dr. Pranav. You can stop the recording now.
It's a pleasure. Thank you once again.